Often dismissed as abstract speculation, metaphysics is, in reality, the foundation of all thought. It shapes how we define such essential notions as existence, truth, and knowledge, our metaphysical presuppositions implicitly informing our every judgment. We are duty-bound to investigate and question our received ontological and epistemological commitments in order that we might determine how we understand the world and our place within it. But what even is this subject called metaphysics? There is, in fact, some amount of controversy over the intended meaning of the term. Just as the term science comes from the Latin scientia, to know, yet now represents a narrow stream of knowledge, this comes from a Greek term meaning beyond physics. In the book by this name, Aristotle expounded what he called first philosophy, setting the tone of all future work in the subject. Since the time of Aristotle, our conception of what he called first philosophy has become much more determinate, even if the subject has fallen out of fashion in recent years. Metaphysics names the science of first principles, and therefore concerns the first principles of existence itself, a field called ontology. Ontology aims to ask about what kinds of things can exist, and thus the term is employed in special circumstances to designate the set of primary entities that compose the quote-unquote players in a particular domain. For example, quarks and electrons in physics. Yet ontology is broader than any specific application by the special sciences. It concerns primarily questions about the nature of reality, the essence of existence, and the kinds of entities which are fundamental to thinghood itself. The essence of metaphysics is to ask, what is being? In other words, is reality made of physical matter, or is it fundamentally mental? Are things like numbers, possibilities, and moral values actually real, or are they just human constructs? These questions may seem distant from daily life, but they underpin everything from science and technology to aesthetics and ethics. A materialist ontology assumes that all phenomena can be reduced to physical interactions, while an idealist ontology posits that consciousness is the true foundation of all things. The way we answer these questions influences what we consider possible, meaningful, or even worth investigating in the first place. Epistemology, on the other hand, asks, how do we know what exists? If we claim that science provides truth, we must justify why empirical observation is a valid path to knowledge. If we accept mathematical or logical truths, we must explain how they can exist independently of sensory experience. Even skepticism, the doubt that true knowledge is possible, is an epistemological stance that shapes how we engage with reality. Epistemology is the bread and butter of sense-making, yet it cannot stand on its own 2 feet. It cries out for the ground. As a consequence, the impact of metaphysics is both profound and far-reaching. Science itself relies on tacit metaphysical assumptions, such as the belief in an objective reality that exists independently of observation, the principle that nature operates according to laws which are the same everywhere, and the assumption that the mind can reliably interpret sensory data. Without these ontological and epistemological commitments, the scientific method would have no basis in fact. In fact, ethics and politics too are built on metaphysical foundations. If one holds a deterministic ontology, then free will, and by extension moral responsibility, might become questionable. If one adopts a realist stance on morality, ethical truths exist independently of human opinion, and therefore it makes sense to punish evildoers. On the other hand, if one is an anti-realist, morality is just a social construct, and thus we need not concern ourselves with it unless it will impact our relationships. These commitments shape everything from legal systems to personal values. Even subjects like mathematics and logic depend on metaphysical assumptions. A Platonist views numbers as real entities that exist independently of human thought, while a formalist sees them as mere symbolic systems that have a certain pragmatic value, useful fictions, as it were. These various perspectives on reality deeply influence how we approach the concept of truth within the context of science and philosophy both. Though modernity seeks to abandon metaphysics, in truth it drinks deeply of the well every time the ego looks away for a moment. Ontology is not optional. Eventually, any thinker worth his salt comes to the conclusion that metaphysics is inescapable. Whether we acknowledge it or not, our beliefs about reality and knowledge shape everything we do. The question is not whether we have metaphysical commitments, but whether we examine them critically, because they, in turn, define the limits and possibilities of human understanding. So then, what metaphysical presumptions might be hiding beneath the hood for you?